Hello, how is it going? In this video, I'm going to show you how to use Google Colab. What is Google Colab? Google Colab is a product from Google Research. So this is a hosted notebook. So as you can see, the first thing that you see is that the interface looks a little bit similar to Jupyter notebooks. If you don't know what Jupyter notebooks are, you can watch my previous video. I'll put the link in the description below. So the first thing that we want to do is to rename the Colab notebook by double clicking on this name here. We'll just call it Intro Colab. So this becomes the new name of our notebook. You see that it also has similar menu as the notebook. And it also has some additional things that Jupyter notebooks don't have. For example, you can have comments and you can share the notebook without even need to download it. So this will give you a link that you can share with someone. And right here it shows you how much RAM you're using and how much disk space you have. And here you can see that it's in edit mode. And when you click on any cell, you see that it gives you addition menu here. You can comment, you can delete, you can move the cell up or down. So here, because it's the topmost cell, I can only have the option to move it down. And here you can have access to the table of contents, you can search, and you can also see the files that you have in the notebook. And at the bottom here you see the amount of disk space that's available in this notebook. So you can use the notebook without any setup. You don't need to set up any environment. Just as it is, you can use it. And it comes with the main packages that are used for deep learning pre-installed, so no need to install the main packages. For example, here you see that Pytorch is already installed. So if I do that, you can see Pytorch is installed, and we can check the version. See that 1.90 is installed. And if I want Tensorflow, you can see that Tensorflow is also already installed, and we can check which version is installed. And we see that for Tensorflow it's version 2.5. So as you can remember from the previous tutorial on how to run the code in the notebook, I have to hold Shift and Enter. That's how I run the cell. And you can also see what kind of processor you have. So here I'm just running this Linux command cat block CPU info, and you see that it has a very nice CPU, and you can look at the other data there. Next, I'd like to draw your attention to the runtime. So as you know, we'll be working on deep learning models, and these they become quite hard to train on the CPU because the CPU is slower as compared to GPUs. So what we need when we start using Colabs in future, we want to use the GPU to train our models first. I'll explain the specifics later why the GPU is faster than the CPU. Here I'll just show you how to change the runtime from CPU to GPU. So to change the runtime, just go to runtime, click here and find change runtime, click change runtime, and here you see that it's set to none. So this means that we are using the CPU. To use the GPU, just click here and you see you have GPU and TPU. So TPU is much faster than GPU. TPUs are made by Google and they're specifically meant for AI, so they're much faster than GPUs. So in future we'll be using more of GPUs and TPUs. The only thing that you have to be aware of is that once you start using the GPU or TPU, your time is limited. You can only use Google Colab for 12 hours. That's because the resource is free and they want more people to have access to these GPUs. So if the same person can use it for a long time, then they might end up dominating. So what you want to do is, here you just select GPU and hit save. And now we are on GPU. So you can see if I run the command to see what kind of GPU I'm connected to. So here we see that I'm connected to a Tesla T4 GPU with a 16 GB RAM. So here in the FAQ you can see the types of GPUs that are provided by Google Colab. So you have the K80, the T4, the P4 and the P100. So which GPU you are connected to would depend on the availability of these GPUs. So one thing that you might want to do is to check which GPU you are connected to. And to do that, just type this command NVIDIA SMI, and this will show you the GPU that you are connected to. Here it's a Tesla T4. So just make sure that when you are connecting to a GPU that you really need to use it, otherwise you start using up part of your 12 hours, and if you run out of 12 hours you lose access to the GPU for some time, but access will be restored after a few hours. That's just something you should take note of. And you can always see your CPU utilization and disk utilization here. So in this tutorial, because I'm not going to be using any GPU, I'm just going to put that back to none and save. Always remember to close your notebook when you're done so that you don't consume resources. The other thing that you might need to be aware of is that if you're idle for some time, this notebook can time out. It can disconnect you from the resources. So if you're running an experiment, just make sure that you're not very idle because it might disconnect you. In my experience, if you're idle for more than an hour, it's going to disconnect you. So just make sure that you're not very idle when you're running a long experiment. So that marks the end of this video. Thanks for joining me. You don't want to miss the next lesson when we start looking at deep learning and the basics with Pytorch. See you in the next video. Remember to like and subscribe.